right, good morning. It is Monday here at the here on the East Coast. It's 9:37 a.m. on the East Coast. Today is August 27th, 2018, and today's episode is going to be about 9/11. The anniversary is coming up in just a little bit. And there's some really big news about 9/11. And so we're going to go into that. So stay with us. I'll try not to make this too long. But I was watching a Sarah Westell interview yesterday. And she was interviewing Steele is his name, I believe. Let me see if I can bring this up real quick. Yes, Robert David Steele is his name. And in his he has a website, robertdavidsteele.com. And there you can we'll find out things about him, his backgrounds, which is quite impressive. Here it says awards and recognition. 2017 top CIA reformer. Robert Steele is a former Marine, CIA case officer, and co-founder of the U.S. Marine Corps Intelligence Activity. Steele's mission has been to spread the use of open source intelligence. He claims that he is a reformer, not a whistleblower. He has written handbooks on OSINT for NATO, the DIA, and U.S. Special Operations Forces. He has stated that the preconditions for resolution exist, He has stated that the preconditions for revolution exist in the United States, UK, and other Western countries. He enumerates such conditions as elite isolation, to concentrated wealth, to inadequate socialization and education, to concentrated land holdings, to loss of authority, to repression of new technologies, especially in relation to energy, to the atrophy of the public sector and spread of corruption, to media dishonesty, to mass unemployment of young men, and on and on and on it goes. And so I ran across an interview that Sarah Westell was doing with him yesterday when he started to talk about 9/11. Now, I haven't heard about anybody talk about 9/11 in some time now because I guess eventually everybody will burn out. Now, I don't know what your views on 9/11 are, but I know what mine are. I remember where I was on that day. I was in a chemistry lab in college, and that day I had an early class. It was like a 7 or 8 a.m. class, and right after that chemistry lab bled out, I walked down the hall, and a bunch of students were gathered around the television, which was really unusual at that time. You'd have a few people around the lounge, but not that many. So I knew something was up, and I walked over and I started watching with them. I saw that the first World Trade Center building was on fire, at least the first one that was hit, supposedly. We'll get into that later. And there it was. It was on fire and burning, and I was asking what's going on. Somebody said it was hit by a plane, and the first thing I thought was, well, how dumb do you have to be? How bad of a pilot do you have to be to not be able to miss the World Trade Center? I mean, you got to be a really bad pilot to not, I figured you'd want to miss that. But it wasn't too much longer then another plane came into view of the camera, and the other tower was hit, and then obviously we knew it was intentional. But I knew at that time, excuse me for a second, that something wasn't right. Well, as soon as the first World Trade Center started to really fall, it kind of just crumbled. I've been a fireman both in civilian and military, and I had been through the fire academy 2 or 3 times And so I know that fire, even if a building like that's hit by a plane of that size, which they were built with that in mind, that is possible that could happen. I mean, it was really a far out possibility, but it was possible that could happen. So they built it to withstand that. And so that knowing that those buildings were built to withstand an airplane hit like that, there's just no way in hell is that plane, or that building rather, reinforced steel. I mean, it's just going to turn to dust, which is basically what it did. I mean, it just absolutely came to pieces. Right then, as soon as the first one came down, I said to myself, something's not right. Buildings don't just fall down like that. I knew that from my experience. But after 9/11, of course, they already knew who the boogeyman was right off the bat. They knew that it was Osama bin Laden right off the bat. They knew who did it. They started cleaning it up right away. That's how you know that something fishy is going on. They're not really investigating. They're just telling you what happened, and then they're hurrying up and getting rid of the evidence as fast as they can possibly do it. That's when you know something's not right. So a lot of people since 9/11, 2001, and now have been sounding the alarm that something wasn't right with that day, and we really need to know what that is. And of course, the deep state and the money interests decided that, well, that we should go back to sleep, just like the JFK assassination. Even though it was obvious that JFK had been shot from the front, not the back, they just kept telling us that we were nuts if we questioned that. But we all know, at least any of us with any common sense, that the official story of the JFK assassination was complete nonsense. Just like we know that 9/11, the story of the way they say it happened, is also nonsense. We need to know what happened on that day, because it changed our, not only just our country, it changed the entire world. And I think they owe it to us, or we owe it to ourselves to know what the truth was, so that our sons aren't dying in a war on a lie. Lies they've been dying in wars for years now. We need to tell the truth. We need to find out what the truth is. And it's a long and exhausting thing to do, especially with those who are affected by 9/11 on that day, the wars that followed. They've affected so many people's lives. But we do need to know what the truth is, so that we can correct this terrible wrong. All right, with that, I'm going to play a little bit of the interview that I heard. This is between Sarah Westell and Robert David Steele. Here we go.
There is already one candidate running on 9/11 truth, and all the newspapers have turned against him. And the newspaper is now starting to receive letters to the editor from serious people saying, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. The deep state assassinated John F. Kennedy. The deep state is trying to assassinate Donald Trump. I'm told there have been 12 assassination attempts. And on the last one, the Secret Service agent died defending our president.
Okay, he just said he heard that there's been 12 attempts on President Trump's life. And on the last one, a Secret Service agent died. You're not going to hear that in the mainstream media. So if you think this guy is just kind of a wacko, you need to look into who this guy is. He's legit. Again, his name is Robert David Steele. And you can find out about him at Robert David Steele RobertDavidSteele.com. He is, okay, he's not some lunatic in his basement. He's legit. So he's worth listening to.
Congress passed a law under the Obama administration that makes it legal for the U.S. government to lie to the U.S. public. And the Department of Justice under Obama told the courts that they reserve the right to lie to the courts in cases of national security, which today means everything. Alex Jones is facing a legal situation in which everybody who testifies against him is under a national security waiver for lying to the courts with permission.
Learn about the red tea that flushes one.
All right, then it goes into a commercial. If you heard what he was talking about here, they have made it, I believe it was Bush and Obama, they've made it legal for the government to make propaganda or lying to you legal. See, all of the pretense that things are fair, that we are in a free country, that this is the America that you remember, that's all gone, and you need to wake up to this fact. It's terrifying, I know. It's terrifying. Trust me. I stay awake at night thinking about this stuff. But we have to live, we have to deal with the reality in which we find ourselves. Those of us who are Christians, who believe in God, who understand that this is biblical prophecy, that this is the end of days, it is the end of the United States, it's the end of days, what we're going to see coming has been foretold for 2,000 years in the Bible. And so for those of us of faith, we realize that this is going to happen, that we can't really change it. This is prophecy. This is ordained by God to happen. And so we try not to worry so much, because we know that these things are going to happen. They've been foretold for a very long time, and these things are going to happen. It's very surreal now that it is happening, but we do know why it's happening. And I recommend to you, if you are not someone of faith, that you reach out to somebody who is of faith, whether it's Jewish or Christian, and talk to somebody about this stuff, because this can certainly bring you down, to say the least. Okay, but if you start to understand the why of what's going on, it will really help you, and it will really help you get through these times in which we find ourselves in. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and continue. Forgive me, I'm going to try to get past this little commercial part.
My interview now with Robert David Steele.
Hi, Robert. Welcome back to the program.
Sarah, it's always a pleasure to be with the single most organized interview I ever deal with.
Thank you so much. I really like having you here. You're the most read person. You are the most nonfiction read person on Amazon, #1 reviewer. I know you stopped doing that because of the nonsense. But
well, I actually removed all my reviews from Amazon because Amazon is banning books, reviewers, and reviews right now, which is very uncool. All of my reviews are free online at phi-beta-iota.net and also robertdavidsteele.com.
What I love about that is it shows how educated, that's not always a good word, but how well read you are and in tune with whistleblowers and people out there trying to get the truth out there, and in tune with people who are trying to spin it as well, which is important.
Well, the bottom line is I've never been pretentious about what I know. I mean, I stand on the shoulders of over 2,200 others, and I cite them. And whenever I mention a book, I've written a summary review of that book. So I live in the world of substance. I'm not one of these theater players that spins a narrative just so they can get attention.
Well, that's important because we have so much going on. And let's go into one of the most important things that are going on right now, which is historical. 9/11 memorandum, which is uniting all the whistleblowers and scientists and people out there sending a letter to Donald Trump on the truth of 9/11. Can you talk about that initiative and what it means?
Well, I feel blessed. I never planned to get into all these 9/11 truth things and so forth. I've always been about creating a world brain and an open source agency, and my motto is the truth at any cost lowers all other costs. What has happened is that not only 9/11 truth, but Sandy Hook truth have become the litmus test for whether the U.S. government can be trusted or not. And I believe that 9/11 truth and Sandy Hook truth are going to make or break the U.S. political system in the 2018 cycle, probably, and the 2020 cycle, certainly. There is already one candidate running on 9/11 truth, and all the newspapers have turned against him. And the newspaper is now starting to receive letters to the editor from serious people saying, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. Now, in this volume that I put together, and I forget exactly where the idea originated. It was probably my idea, but in any event, what I did was I reached out to a number of people, including world-class people like Peter Dale Scott, who was the original professor and author on the deep state as it emerged after the assassination of John F. Kennedy. The deep state assassinated John F. Kennedy. The deep state is trying to assassinate Donald Trump. I'm told there have been 12 assassination attempts. And on the last one, a Secret Service agent died defending our president. Dave Griffin, Peter Dale Scott, Dr. James Fetzer, who's also a Marine Corps retired officer. I've got them all. We put together 28 memoranda, generally one-page memoranda. We're trying to stick to the presidential one-page, 7 bullets. But a few of them are 2 pages, and one of them is 4 pages. The bottom line here is that we nail, beyond a shadow of a doubt, the fact that 9/11 was planned and executed by the Zionists, enabled by Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. Now, what we have not established beyond a shadow of a doubt is exactly how the Twin Towers were brought down. There may have been directed energy weapons. There may have been a nuclear event at the bottom. There may have been particular forms of thermite explosions, whatever. We've established there were no airplanes. We've established the possibility that holograms were used. In short, we have done far more to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the 9/11 Commission report, like the Warren Commission report, is a pack of lies. And if Donald Trump were to use his planned speech on the 11th of September of 2018, we know he's got a speechwriter working on his speech. That's why this memorandum was put together and delivered to the White House on the 8th of August. It was also delivered to a number of Trump intimates. There is absolutely no question but that the president knows that it exists. There is some question as to whether the chief of staff or someone else has blocked the actual hard copy from reaching the president of the United States. Donald Trump is a prisoner in his own White House. But I know Donald Trump Jr. got it. I know key other people like Roger Stone got it. So it's out there. It's on the table. Now we're doing the same thing on Sandy Hook. And although the Sandy Hook truthers are one level down from the 9/11 truthers in terms of the quality of their memoranda and the conciseness and succinctness of their commentary, same thing is happening. And after this, we can do Boston bombing, we can do the Orlando club bombing. There is absolutely no question but that the U.S. government is lying to the public. Now, here's the problem. Congress passed a law under the Obama administration that makes it legal for the U.S. government to lie to the U.S. public. And the Department of Justice under Obama told the courts that they reserve the right to lie to the courts in cases of national security, which today means everything. This is the real problem that Alex Jones is facing in his lawsuit.
You can't win.
Now,
If they, you can't win any case because they can lie. How do you? Go ahead.
He can win, but his lawyers are going to have to be extraordinarily gifted, and they're going to have to pay attention to what all of us are saying. Alex Jones is facing a legal situation in which everybody who testifies against him is under a national security waiver for lying to the courts with permission. And the courts, almost certainly, as the president has said, it's a rigged system. The judge and the prosecutors and everybody involved in that whole theatrical trial is going to be part of a rigged system. So Alex Jones is not going to be able to win that one unless his lawyers bring in every single one of the people that has written one of these memorandums on Sandy Hook and brings in the people who have written the memorandums on 9/11, and we establish in front of a citizens jury, beyond a shadow of the doubt, that the United States government is lying to the public at the local level, the state level, and the national level about Sandy Hook and 9/11. And Sarah, I think this is a wonderful moment. This is literally this is an existential moment in which people like you and me and the average citizen can come out and say, bullshit.
And do you think that's happening? Do you think there is a groundswell of enough people now that are saying, this is all bullshit and I'm tired of the government lying to us, and change the rules so that they can't lie? That's bullshit.
Well, you know, DOD just got permission to cook the books. Congress just passed a law that says that DOD is allowed to cook the books in order to hide secret programs. Now, it's interesting because the Congressional Research Service came out recently and said that the president cannot establish a Space Force unless Congress first approves and authorizes and appropriates money for that Space Force. Read carefully, what that really means is that the existing secret Space Force is unconstitutional because it's never been approved by Congress. Neither has the National Security Agency. The National Security Agency has no congressional charter. And all of this mass surveillance that they're doing is absolutely unconstitutional, without question. Okay, so what we're really seeing here is an existential battle for the soul of America. And there are two great books. One was written by William Greider, and the other one was written by John Bogle, about the battle for the soul of capitalism. What we're seeing now is a battle for the soul of the United States of America. And what I think we're going to see coming out on the back end in 2020 and 2024 is states' rights. There was a very important Fourth Amendment case on illegal search and seizure that was just won based on the state constitution trumping Supreme Court decisions. What this really means is that the states, not the federal government, are the sovereign authority within each state. And you can carry that down to the county level. We're also seeing TSA groping children. And I'm seeing increased outrage. The TSA standard for anyone who opts out of a TSA scanner is that they're groped. They literally have to touch their genitals. That's part of their handbook. You have to be up behind the genitals, which is where some people will put a .25 caliber gun. There's a certain amount of sense on that. TSA standard is also that anyone over the age of 13 is an adult and will have their genitals probed as an adult. So we have TSA people all over this country committing sex crimes every day based on U.S. government policy.
Well, let's ask you about censorship, because more and more people are waking up to this, but now they're really cracking down on censorship even more. I mean, I don't know how they completely shut down Alex Jones. Your video that was on SGT Report got shut down. It shut down his channel, and they put it back up without your video. You're very highly censored. Where do you think, I mean, are the people going to be able to hear the information they need to hear? And not that Alex Jones is the beacon of good information, but so many people are being censored on the left and the right, all over the place. Anything that's not with the narrative.
Well, let me unpack that at multiple levels. First off, you're making an important point, which is...
All right, I'll leave it there. I don't want to just keep playing the whole thing, but I really thought that this is so important that I should do a podcast on it. 9/11 is the start of everything. That's that's what started off the wars. It started off the loss of our freedoms. It started off just the whole ball of wax rolling from a lie, and it came from. Now he says that Israel was part of it. He says Rumsfeld and Cheney were involved.